if I remember correctly, he was down in South Florida, and Frank wanted me to meet him, and he wanted Claude to meet me, and that's where we met. I think he was down there for a speech. I'm not sure. I think I think Claude wanted to ask, was I a Democrat? I was, but you know, he did. He was vivacious. I mean, he always had so much enthusiasm in anything he did. And he could make a speech without any notes or anything. And he could quote figures, numbers. He was just brilliant. And of course, you know, in the family, mostly we got our information at dinners, or he would take us out sometime. I didn't know much about him, you know, except what I read in the newspapers. Well, to be perfectly honest, I didn't pay much attention to politics at that point. But after I knew him and I started, you know, to read the papers and it made me mad when they took out after him because I knew he wasn't that way at all. Well, when they said things about him that I knew weren't true, they said one thing that I heard, and the rumor started that he was terrible to his mother, and I knew that wasn't true because he was great for he just did everything for her, called her all the time and saw that she had everything she needed. He was great to his mother. He and Franklin Roosevelt talked a lot about the war, and I believe he went to one of the war zones. I can't remember which one it was now. And it hurt him every time he saw that so many boys were being killed. Well, I knew him better, and then I had 2 children, and he was interested in it. He was interested in everything. Anything that would come up that he didn't know about, he wanted to find out about. He had a good reputation. You know, in politics, you can't please everybody, so there was some that wasn't as. Of course, when Smathers, when he ran in 1950, then it was really a dirty campaign. And I think it affected my family and my children at school. But it didn't seem to faze him. I mean, he went right along. It affected me and even my children at school, you know. Smathers got out this book that was a red pepper or something, pink pepper, I forgot now what it was. And it was awful. It was just terrible. And I didn't like Smathers at all. But anyway, it was a terrible campaign. I remember the morning after he was defeated, he was talking to Frank and me, and he said, you know, every time I've had a defeat in my life, it's been a stepping stone for something bigger. And it was, really. Because then he ran in the House. That year, in between, he set up 3 law offices, one in Miami, one here, and one in Washington. And then he had to pay back all his campaign debts. You know, when you lose, nobody pays your campaign debts. And in 1961, I think is when he ran for the House. And he went down to actually here in Leon County, he was not appreciated as much as he should have been. So he went down to Miami and set up, you know, to live there. And then he ran from there. And he was elected. And he was there until 1989 when he died. Well, he was enthusiastic. The defeat didn't get him down. And I think he knew in his mind what he wanted to do, go back to Congress. And he was so busy, you know, setting up 3 law offices. And he got a lot of good law cases. He knew he wanted to get back to Congress. when he was in Congress, he was chairman of the Rules Committee, I believe, which is a very important committee. And he could go twice a year to these countries that had aid, got aid from us. And a group would go from Congress, and they would ask him, what are they doing with this? And his wife had passed away by that time, and he could take one member of the family. And so I went on several. But I want you to know that they laid out the red carpet for him there. Everybody seemed to know him. You know, would wave at him and everything. And I think he was liked more over there in some cases than he was here. They were wonderful trips. We had a good time. I think I took 3 trips with it. Let's see, we went to Portugal. We went to Madrid, and we had to go to Portugal to land because there was a bad storm. And then we went to Greece. They didn't like us there at that time. And we went to Spain. We had an audience with the king. We went to Egypt, and we saw Mubarak, and he had an audience. We went to his palace. I mean, sometimes we could go as outsiders, but sometimes we couldn't. And they would ask him all kind of questions. You know, what are you doing with the money and so forth. And let's see, we went to Morocco. We went to Africa. I believe that's it. We went to the Orient one time. There was a big meeting going on that they have every 10 years, and all the countries in the world were there. And he was to make a speech, I think, and we went there. That was it. And everybody seemed to know him. You know, evidently his fame had spread all over. He loved children. He loved his sisters. She had 2. I had 2 boys. And one of my boys went to Harvard. And he really loved him because, you know, he was, and he was so much for education. He'd ask them what their grades were. And if they made a B, he said, why didn't you make an A? I said, it's a good thing he doesn't have children because, you know, they wouldn't like that. He always talked about, you know, the children. He just didn't. So I don't know. I know it was funded later, $10 million or something. But I don't know. Because I didn't go in there when Frances went in there when he was so sick. Because she was taking dictation, and they were talking about and I'm sure they were talking about the foundation. See, I don't remember, but the foundation wasn't founded until he'd been gone several years, I think. But he would love it now. He would love it because it's blossomed forth, and it's just so good. It's a good thing. I'm in in a retirement home, active, and I see out there, you know, they all think Claude Pepper is great because he does so much for the aging. And he would love it. He really would. He was very generous with his money. And he did not die a wealthy man. He's always been interested in people and bettering people. And he was interested in going back to what he believed. And he believed that everybody should be free. And he worked, you know, for the Afro-Americans a lot. And for the aging. He really was interested in the aging. And I'm glad because I'm in that category. I think it was in the 60s when there was so much controversy, when they first started. Well, a lot of people didn't like him because he was for civil rights. But that didn't faze him. He always had a lot on his mind because he was so busy. Oh, everybody in the family liked to talk. And sometimes he was out-talked. But Anyway, we'd laugh a lot, and we'd ask him questions. Sometimes politics, sometimes family problems. Well, Frank and I were with him before he died up in Washington. And he was still going strong because he felt like he was going to get well. And Frances Campbell, she had worked for him for 20 years. I don't know what you call her, his assistant or whatever, but she was great. And he would keep calling her in all the time. He was setting up this foundation then, I believe. And he'd always had, he wanted a place like this where students could come and, you know, be prominent and just have, you know, interesting people and smart people in it. But now Frances Campbell can tell you more about that. I don't really know. I mean, whatever the foundation does, she had a time trying to find a location. A lot of snags before, you know, we found this. He gave all his papers to FSU too. I don't really know. At first, they were not going to have it in a university, and they tried and tried, you know, to find a place, but for some reason they couldn't. And then I think when he gave them all his papers, that cinched it. I think it was a big thing here, and the papers, you know, took it over. And of course, Claude was gone then, and it was highlighted. He would love it. He would love it because this is what he's always wanted. You know, when he was, they say when he was a young man in Camp Hill, Alabama, that he carved out on the desk Senator Claude Pepper, U.S. Senator, when he was just a little fella. So he knew what he wanted. He kept going. He kept going. Really, just a few months before he had to go in the hospital, he would come by Tallahassee and stay with us when he did. And he had been, I remember seeing him come in the airport, and he looked real tired, you know, and kind of walked slow, which is unusual for him. And after that, they put him in the hospital. He had cancer, and I think this is a story, I don't know if you even want to put this in your summary, but some doctor did a biopsy on him and didn't have it checked, and it was cancerous, and that's what. He had not eaten, I think, for months, but they fed him through his stomach. And he was in good, I mean, he was always happy. But a few, this sticks out in my mind, a few days before he died, the president, not Bush, not his son, but the father, and he was there, and members of Congress came, and they gave him the Medal of Freedom, is that, I think that was it. And he knew he was going to make a speech. At that time, he knew he was going to die. He made a speech, and he would not even take any medicine, you know, to help him, because he wanted to be, his mind be clear to make the speech. And he made the most wonderful speech, really, that I'd ever heard. In this speech, he said everything that he wanted, you know, for the country to be like. And it was just a great speech. And that would be, to me, that would be a great thing to put in except when they told him that he thought he was going to get well. He was an optimist from the word go. And when he knew he wasn't, he was a little bit down. But he kept going and made that speech, which was great. He would talk about what he was doing, and he was with the aging, and also just with downtrodden people, you know. I don't know, he was just wonderful. I was holding one hand, and his niece was the other, and Tom Spurlock was holding his feet, and that's when he died. He died. That's just the way he was. He was interested in everything, And he had a lot of humor when he had a pacemaker put in, and they asked him how long it would last, and they said 10 years. He said, well, let's put 2 in. He had a good sense of humor. And he loved to go to parties. He loved people. You know, he liked to be around people. And people, he never did sit down to eat all together because people were always calling on him. You know, they wanted this and they wanted that. And I understand that he did his darndest to do something for these people that would come to him. He would get things done. He really would. He usually was a center of attraction, yeah. He was just a great person. He really was. I knew him personally. And if you asked him to do anything, he was very generous. He really was. He would act the same way at home as he would when he meet people. He loved people. I remember one time he would come and then he would sleep about 15 minutes. He'd tell his mother to wake him up, and he was ready to go again. It was amazing the way he could relax. I think him being in the family made a difference. But, you know, my husband was on television for many years, and Frank was a little bit different. But I think that we looked up to him because of who he was and how kind he was. You know, he would listen to you, and he would always call the office and try to get something done, you know, somebody in his office. Fortitude, I guess you call it. He could really bounce back. And he loved to go. He loved everything, you know. And I understand you might not want to use this, but there were 2 people who had really done him wrong. I don't know what it was. And at the very last, he had forgiven everybody, but he finally called Frances in, I think, and told her that he forgave him too. He was very religious. I have his Bible, and he's got it marked in several places. He had special places marked, you know, where he was reading. And he was not icky with it, but you could tell he was. I mean, the way he treated people and the way he felt. Even when he was lying in bed, you know, sick, he was calling Frances in and dictating. You know, he stayed busy.
Yeah.
But he forgave everybody, even those 2 people that he had really done him wrong. I don't know who they were, but I had heard that.